First item on the agenda is the approval of the October 19th, 2023 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Policies for first reading. Tonight are policy GBCD, criminal history and background checks with major changes.
And I have a brand new copy because the one that was sent at the beginning of the week was incomplete, so I apologize for that. So I'll send these around and I can explain what the changes from earlier this week. This is a policy that just had some changes to update to align with RSA 18913-A. But in looking at Rochester's policy, it looks like we missed a couple of revisions in the past several years, and so I just want to explain what I did with this policy so you understand. I essentially took the recommended wording for the policy and replaced what we had previously to ensure that we're in line with the RSA because we had missed a couple of revisions. You might find in the old copy of the policy and the new one, it essentially says similar things in different paragraphs or different parts, but it just, I didn't want to miss anything, so for the most part, the wording is new, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The one that I sent you earlier this week, or that Kim sent out, there were a couple of paragraphs on the last page that were incomplete. It was like ... I hadn't finished the sentence. And it was because those two paragraphs are actually repeated in a different part of the policy. And so I took those paragraphs out because they were repeated down further on the page. It's kind of confusing. When I basically tried to merge the two policies and found that there was so much repetition that I had to go back and pull out the stuff so it wasn't in there twice. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I noticed you just don't have the adopted date and the amended date. Is this a new policy?
This would be new, meaning what our previous adoption dates were.
Right, well, so normally we have the year that it's adopted, so the year that it started, and then we have if there's ever any, like.
Yeah, so I
amendment.
missed that.
Yeah,
It's not a
yeah.
brand new policy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
yeah, if we could just make sure that that's added.
What's the time frame that we're getting criminal history back now?
Weeks.
Weeks?
Not months, that's good.
I think it's not,
It's sped up on the private sector as well.
yeah.
They've been quicker with childcare.
The other question is, I know before, I don't know if we still are, we still allowing them to come into the schools and teach even though we don't have it back yet?
Yes, so the conditional hire is still part of this policy, which that is one place that the board has the ability to not do that, where all of the background checks
I
have to
know
come
that
back.
if we talked about it before, if we did that before, we would be
Yes.
even more short.
Right, that's the
Because more than
that's the
likely,
challenge.
I know we've had a couple come up where, but for the most part, they come back. It's just, I just don't understand why it takes us so long.
Yeah, it's faster than it's faster.
Especially if it's on a computer.
They supposedly were buying 10 more new live scan machines to place around the state because they were so backed up for fingerprinting and background checks.
When we do fingerprinting at the school, is it still the ink? Or do we send them to the PD?
I think it's still the ink. I'm trying to remember now how she does it. Fingerprinting? It's not ink, it's on that, it's just on a
Live scan.
pad.
Do you have a live scan? Oh,
Good job. I have no idea, I've never.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Any motion?
Oh,
Matt?
Make a motion to present for first reading to the board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I thought I was going to get my cane.
Usually you'd have nudged me, sorry.
policies for second reading tonight are ACN, Nursing Mothers Accommodations, which is new, and ACD, Public Gifts or Donations to Schools, which is new.
I would make the motion to move to full board for second reading and adoption,
Second.
both policies.
I do got one question
Okay.
on public gifts in school. Why does it have to go to full board for approval for anything over a certain amount of money? Why can't we just take that gift? Why
I
does
think
the
that's
super-
part of the new law. There are certain dollar amounts that have to go to each
Okay.
level.
So those,
For RC 198.
okay. No, there is a dash, you're
Gifts
right.
in the amount of $20,000 and more shall require the board to hold a public hearing. We don't get those very often, but
And they did up those numbers, that was the last revision why I had to come back to the
Like
board.
5 grand
They upped the
more.
numbers so that they're higher than
Yeah.
the previous award.
So I made a motion.
And I seconded.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We have a 5-year plan, but yes.
So we've been talking about it, and I think it's time we schedule the NHSBA, because next, in January, we have a new board. I'm assuming we'll have we're gonna have newer members of the policy committee or any policy committee. So we should have NHSBA come in, and I think actually can talk about some of the items under others, so we can have an informed decision on, because it seems we every kind of 6 months, these policies come up, that we can go over, right to know, public comment, bullying, like a good review of policy, but I think we should focus on a couple policies, so that way we have NHSBA giving us like a tutorial or a little private seminar, if we can get them in here.
Yeah.
And then all board members are invited to also attend, because it's a committee night, and the public can see, we actually are doing our research before we make these changes, so whenever things come up, because continuously they are, they know that we have reviewed this, because we just did some of these in May,
Yeah.
so I don't wanna keep on doing it over and over again, that's all. That was my thought, I don't know what the rest of the
So we
committee
could have,
believes.
maybe you could reach out to the,
Sure. When do you want that in December, or
January
January?
or
After
February.
the new
We
board.
gotta have a new board, so
Yep.
whatever the committee meetings are.
Okay, for the January committee meeting night?
Policy.
Yeah,
I
that
would-
would be February.
I would wait February, because the January, it's gonna be that first meeting,
Oh, they probably wonder what
and
policy.
they're gonna be trying to figure it out,
Okay,
how to be on a board, which some of them understand, so I think give them until
I would think
February.
February would make more sense.
okay.
Then they can go over and ask questions that we keep on discussing, if it makes sense.
But I don't think we should probably wait, I think we can discuss pull the bullying one for next month, so we can start, because I think that's some,
That's
and that's
gonna
gonna
take
take a
some
few
work.
months, it's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
take some few months, so I would like to maybe put that one on the agenda for next month.
Yes.
Now, were you thinking the head lice also waiting, or is that?
No, I was just thinking more, we've had a lot of conversation, like Karen brought some really good, good information on the law. We can independently review, but I think if we actually have a focused night that will hit our 5-year objective and really dig into these policies that I think publicly we've heard, even campaigning, I know I did, we've heard people say about it, it speaks on the transparency, and we've been talking about it, well, that's a good night to meet our 5-year objective by NHSBA coming in, that's who we currently have an association with, and do a good training session for us, and then the policy committee can make an informed decision, and the board is aware. So, to bring in everything that we've been talking about, that's all.
Are we going,
That's not
are we doing the other for the right to know?
I was just talking 5 years at
Okay.
this point.
So we're
Sorry.
on 5 years.
I just wanted to know.
That's right, I know, our agenda's been all over.
I know, you're 5-year, but you lumped it.
Well, it does touch on it, but our
Yeah.
5-year plan has been bringing in NHSBA, or, it was time to finally, let's get a date. That's all.
Anything else for 5 year? Before we go on?
No public comment.
No public comment, there's no one here, so I'm not going to move it. And now we're on to other. And we have these 3 policies for discussion purposes. Karen.
So I read the 91A through and through, and I am not the smartest person in the room. So if you look at our policy under number 5, and I did bring this up in another committee on it. So if you look at, it says all right to know requests will be recorded in the right to know law request, which will be posted on the RSD webpage. The log will contain the following information: date of request, name of requester, address of the person, information requested, date fulfilled, number of employees involved, and total hours. So it has been brought multiple times that the reason that is on there is due to the law. And I have read 91A 3 different times, and I cannot find where it says the person needs to be identifiable as well as their address. So I'm requesting that you go back and look at that, and if it's not part of the law, we do not need to force them. It doesn't even say that that person has to live in Rochester. Anybody can request information. It's public information, so anybody from the public, it doesn't state from our city, has to be there. So I am requesting that we look at that, have maybe Jerry look at it, and I want it to specifically not hinder somebody from wanting to come in and request information. So if somebody doesn't want to give their name or have it posted on the website, I don't understand why we would do that, especially their address. I don't think that that's a liability we should entail. But I'm not asking for it to be changed. I'm asking for us to put it next month for the first reading and find out what the law really says, and then we can have that discussion.
I think that's, to Matt's point, having NHSBCA come in February, that would be a question for them to help us with.
So would it be specific?
It would be a presentation on, here's the right to know policy, here's a presentation, here's public comment policy, here's a presentation, and then we can start workshopping our current policies, and then that would be a question that I think we would want to ask them. Well, what about this? Is this appropriate, aligned with the RSA or not? And they could help with that.
I just want to make sure that it's put on for first reading as soon as possible. So if we're saying we're going to specifically mention this policy when the NHSBCA comes, then that's NHSBA comes.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure, because I think we've all been at the election where everybody has said transparency, and I don't think putting somebody's address unless it's required is something we should do.
Yeah.
And just off of that, I agree, but my whole point was, I want to make sure that we get all the information
Correct.
and we make one decision, because
Do it once.
there was one policy I was looking at the other day, and it was like, we just did this in May, and we're gonna do it again. And I think we're just wasting our time. If we do all the pieces, we get it all done at once. And that would just be a good session for a good process that the new policy committee could start adopting when they go forward.
Yeah.
So, that's all.
And I don't know if we should be aligned with what the city does as well, so I don't know if the
I
city attorney should be involved as well, because we should be doing something.
I did
Yes.
print out the city stuff if you want copies, the city
It'd be good research.
right to know, just as a resource for you if you'd like them. I'm sorry to interrupt, I just
No,
wanted to
that's
let you know
fine.
that I did that.
No, that would be good, because
There's 2 different documents. One is their right to know information, and one is on the back, I guess it's just one, is the form you fill out for the city, just so you have that.
For that, when we do have them come in, that's obviously gonna be a long meeting. Is that where we can schedule a public special board meeting to hold that, just strictly on policy? Host them, because if not, we're gonna be here till 10, 11 o'clock at night, going over instruction, going over special services.
We'll have a separate
have a
meeting.
separate.
Have a
night.
separate night strictly for
Yeah.
something like, we can do that, right? We have a special board meeting posted, so they know, and it would be, and then have a regular policy meeting.
So there's no address on this?
We can do that.
There's nothing to do a motion in here to have a special meeting night.
Right, but it's not saying so.
Well, as it turns out, February has, next Thursday, there are 5 Thursdays in
Saying
February.
that here.
So we could do it on the 22nd, and that's the Thursday
The only thing they need at City Hall, I understand that.
So that would be, my motion.
So it looks like the February 27th works out for NH, with the school board association, that would be a good day. Or, I think,
So, yeah, if they can, well, I don't know, let's see if they're available, we can make that motion next one.
Do you want me to check a January date as well, given that it would be an extra meeting, or March,
February or
or?
March.
February, yeah.
February or March?
February.
February would be better.
I'm just thinking if they're not available.
I guess if February's not in March, I wouldn't do
Okay.
it in January.
We'll be in, budget season in March too.
We'll make February.
Even if it can't be a Thursday, Monday.
I have another other for at that point, or do you want to go through these first, like the head lice first?
why was headlights, why do we want headlights back again?
That's
Uh,
where.
Karen
I think there
has-
were questions about, and again, I just brought resources for you to look at,
We
so.
wouldn't know about it.
I printed out just a couple of other school districts' policies for you to have for review if you want to take a look at them. And information from DHHS and also from the CDC, which I think, Karen, you referenced at the last meeting. It came out really small, but if you go onto their website, it comes out regularly, so I'll pass all three of those around just for you to have them if they're helpful as you're. We're aligned with what other districts are doing, but now you just have information as well from DHHS and other places.
Just to refresh, remember, we were talking because we wanted to be notified if there was headlights in that classroom. And I guess our policy right now states that they won't notify you.
We put notices up in the child care center, and you walk into a classroom, they will tell you what's going on in that classroom.
Correct, I think that was the discussion, is the people in the class, the parents wanted to be aware if there was somebody in that class that had headlights.
Have you had them in at the,
Oh,
they have them all the time, right?
Oh, yes. kids
My
are-
daughter came home and changed one twice with them.
It's actually been better, it's been better this fall than in past fall, but, yeah, periodically. Yeah.
And again, this is for your review. I don't know if you want to, take them and take a look at them or think about them
That
for.
is really, really fun.
Yes, yeah.
Unfortunately, my eyes aren't that bad.
Oh, my God.
So it doesn't look like it says you have to advocate that no NIP policy should be discontinued, which I get, but it doesn't say anywhere that you can or cannot notify the school. I mean, notify the parents.
Kids in the school.
I guess my question should be, what would the harm be if we had a student in a class, let's say at Chamberlain, that, there's 3 fifth grade classes, or 2, whatever, and we were to tell the parent, saying, there is a 5th grade student that has lice, please check your kids. What is the harm in doing that?
When I spoke with the nurse department head, her concern, which I think she speaks with other nurses and organizations, is that parents of other children sometimes panic or they're really concerned, so they'll hold their kids home instead of bringing them in. And so the concern is that absence from school is more of a concern than the chance that their child will get it. Another thing, just as a side note, that I was really impressed with when I spoke with her was the actions that the schools take if there is a case of lice. So the custodians will go in and do a deep clean, and they try to keep do a little bit of social distancing and things like that, just to take some measures in the class to try to alleviate those concerns.
How long do they do that for, though?
I don't know.
And I've heard that parents hear there's a case and they treat their kids bad when it might not be necessary.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
over-treatment, these
Yeah.
chemicals are not kind to children. And there are people that
It is.
over-treat children the minute they hear there is a case in the building. I don't find that's true in childcare, however, but
They don't treat them,
they,
sorry.
we buy a lot of kits and we hand out a lot of kits to people to help the situation. Oh, yeah.
So just to clarify, the whole point is, what can we tell the families? And how vague can we be to to satisfy the alertness or not, if we so choose. So that's the research that we have to do.
Right.
Okay. I believe she looked it up last meeting, is there's had to be at least, how many kids in the classroom?
So the cohort normally is, you cannot send out any information unless you can desegregate, so there's no child that can be. So your issue would be Maple Street School, and I believe the number was either 20 or 25. I would go 20, just so we're safe. So if you have Maple Street School and the grade 1 has head lice and they only have 19 students, you would have to say the entire building, because at that point, parents could figure it out. You have Chamberlain that has 2 classes of 5th grade that have 40 students. That is a cohort that's big enough that the law states that you don't have to worry about, like,
Say fifth grade.
you could say a 5th grade. So I think, for me, we're elected officials and parents are saying that they want to know, multiple parents have said it. So for me, I'm not really concerned what the neighboring districts do, because maybe those parents don't care. For us, I would think that we'd want to look at what that cohort, you know what I mean? So your policy would be different for Maple Street School, for the magnet school, than it would be for one of our larger buildings. So, and then at the high school, that's a whole, because those kids are traveling everywhere, but I don't think the high school is really overly upset. But, so that's what my thing is, I don't think you can make that decision tonight, because I think what we kind of asked, and I think the miscommunication was, what would the policy look like? So would all your schools that have a low number, what would you think would be appropriate? Would you say the entire building? Would you say the lower, you know what I mean? Like, at Nancy's, at the Magnet Street School, if the 5th grade's located right next to the 4th grade, maybe you just do those both. But that's what we're looking for you for clarification. Sorry, what? Oh, all right, sorry. No, sorry.
So I think what we're saying is we want to let the parents know that there's head lice in the school. We just need to know how many people, like she said, if there's 20. We want to put in our policy that there's head lice in the school, we just need to know guideline how to do it. Correct? I'm thinking, yes.
Yeah. If we're gonna do it, let's.
We have to do it
Correct.
legally and effectively.
So we use paper on the outside of the school saying there's no place here.
Honestly, no.
Having a parents don't go to school.
I mean, students go home and they tell their parents anyways that this.
How many crossover on the buses?
Oh.
So now do we
social
notify the
distancing-
district?
Social distancing on a bus
But-
doesn't happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you get 2 or 3 kids potentially from different schools on a bus. So do we notify the district versus just the school? Because now,
There's more than 20 on a bus.
I think you put out a general notice. Some schools have developed course, and then let parents take it from there.
My
I
kids
don't-
always knew who it was in their classroom, and they're where I got my information from when I did this in schools.
Exactly.
It was my kids.
Yeah.
My daughter would come and say, I need a
I
punch.
just,
wait till it's bed bugs.
yeah, right, God,
We just should.
those are scary, I'm like, well, if we, I
They're
mean,
both
they're scary.
Yes.
Going to Amazon.
So are we good with head lice? Well,
Well, you get.
Is
I'll
that
make
going
that
back to
clear.
first read, or are you just looking for more information
More
about what it
information
would
that we
Or
look
can
like?
discuss.
what a policy would look like,
Okay.
how would we do that,
Okay.
and make it appropriate for all of our buildings.
Made it more complicated.
Well, we have to tell parents that, you can't just clean your bedroom, you gotta clean your car seat,
Oh, you stuffed animals, everything.
all of it, yeah. And there are some great, the nurses do have great guidance for parents on how to,
Double it twice.
Just twice, you're gonna lucky.
Website that they go to.
yeah.
I recently talked to the executive director of the New Hampshire School Boards Association about new member training. I don't know if any of us have ever been in that. I was not. I arrived in May 1st, is in the year that I was, because I wasn't elected my first year, I was
Yeah.
appointed. And I never got that new member orientation that New Hampshire School Boards Association does. I think Ray Turner was the last one to get that, if I'm not mistaken.
Went along.
And so I asked him, like, what do we do? Do you offer that in the fall? Because there are elections in the fall for all the city, well, I think 9 out of the 10 cities or whatever it is. And he said, typically, no, we do it in the spring when town meeting is in March. But they do offer, they will come to a city to do that training for specific cities. He said they do it for Dover, they do it for Portsmouth, and they could come here. So I don't know if that's something we want to look into. I would highly recommend, I think it's, especially with a large number of people coming in on the board, I think it would make sense, but I don't know whether we need to wait until the board comes in to schedule it. Because we want to make a date, if we go forward with it, we want to do it on a date where everybody can make it.
Would that require another special meeting?
Full board, yes.
Yeah, for the full
Or
board.
it could be,
Honestly, I think the policy, the one that we're going to talk about policy, should be there for that too.
I think technically it would be a non-meeting where you get training,
Sarah,
if there's a.
I think that would be good to have as part of the school board retreat. That could be part of the school
That's what I was
board
going to
retreat.
suggest. It would be part of your day.
But when is that?
Where it's gonna be scheduled, I think, March or April. It's, yeah, one of those.
Just figured I'd throw it out there as a possibility, because we haven't taken advantage of that particular training. And I think it would be useful.
I think it's a good idea.
And that changes all the time, with state laws coming and going every 2 years. That training changes too, so even people who've had it before, it's good to have it again.
And we may,
Yes. Go ahead.
just real quick, I think if we wanted to, we could even join with Dover
I think that's
at
a
the
good
same
idea.
time.
Kind of Summersworth, Dover, you know,
Have one,
all the cities, but we got 3 cities, right, Stratford County.
something
They've
we
all
could
had
do.
That's
elections.
true, where our technical high schools all work together. That would be an interesting,
Wow.
Since we're talking about NHSBA coming for February, are we good with BEDJ just for tonight? And we can discuss it after that training,
Which one?
the public participation at board meetings. I think we all agree there's some tweaking, but are we gonna wait for the training or do we want to discuss it?
No, it'll be separate.
I just want to make sure.
I want to make sure that when we're discussing it, that we're addressing it, you know what I mean? I don't want to just skim over it, because I want to make sure that, you know what I mean? If somebody can't come to a public meeting but wants to add input, I think the board needs to make sure, whether it's a law or not, that we're allowing them to be able to add some kind of input. So I don't know that that's a law issue. I think that's just with COVID and people having disabilities and not being able to make it into the building. I think we need to look at that. And our law, which, so I guess we are going to discuss it, because I'm sorry, but the law states we have to have a minimum of 30 minutes. I just want to be clear that I wrote down, and I don't think this board did it unintentionally, we had 13 seconds for our first board meeting and 14 seconds for public comment. The law, and it's in our policy, states you have to have it for a minimum of 30 minutes. I don't think we knew we were breaking the law, but the law it states in it. RSA 189.74 states you have to have it open for 30 minutes. Now, I will also say that your first meeting was 26 minutes. So if you had pushed public comment to the top, you would have had long enough to where you don't close public comment, you just continue your business. And your special services was 31 minutes. So we can make it and fit within the law. It's just an easy fix.
Matt.
Just for clarification, I did look it up. It says school board shall provide an opportunity for public to comment for 30 minutes. So it
Yes.
doesn't say it will be 30 minutes. It shall provide the opportunity for public comment for 30 minutes.
No, actually, it says the public comment period shall be for no less than 30 minutes.
Shane?
So when you read an RSA and it says shall, that means you will do. Shall doesn't mean there's no if and buts about it. Shall means you will do it. When you read the RSA.
And,
I I just want to, I reached out to our attorney today just to get some clarification around that language, about 30 minutes. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but I can let you know.
But I also,
What's the statute? 189?
It's 189:7:74, and it says, sorry Shane, the public comment period shall be for no less than 30 minutes. So, I mean, it's pretty specific. I have it right here.
So-
I'll read it.
I don't think we should be leaving,
No, it's all right.
Okay,
I don't think we need to be here, sitting here for 30 minutes, because some of our meetings, we're done in 10 minutes.
correct.
But, yes, when you read a law, and it says shall, like,
Shall
for,
what?
if it says you shall do, or you
Right,
shall.
shall, what is the shall in this case?
So
Or
it
you
says
shall
the
leave-
public
or you
comment
shall leave it open
period
for-
shall be for no less than 30 minutes.
So what I'm saying is, when I'm
First line.
doing my job, and if the law states for like a
Yeah.
DV arrest, it
Yeah, I
says
know.
shall,
Yep.
I don't have, there's no gray area.
Right. But do we have to have 3 30-minute periods?
But that's.
Correct, for every committee you have to have a separate 30 minutes.
There's gotta be something that makes,
That makes no sense, that we gotta tie
I just
ourselves up
can't. We're
for
here,
an hour and a half when there's no one here.
So here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying if you had a 26, I'm saying if you had a 26-minute meeting and you had public comment in the beginning, at least you're offering more than 13 seconds. I'm saying you open with public comment, and if you close at 26 minutes because your business is done, I don't think anybody's gonna argue that. But when you put it at the end, it just makes it difficult.
I'm sorry.
So, in the past, when we've had a room full of people, we've had 2 hours of public comment or an hour of public comment. When the people are here, we have ample time, we don't turn people away. We'll extend the public comment for whatever it takes. But when the room is empty, or you have one person that's spoken and they're done, that we've provided the opportunity for public comment. There's no more public to comment. So there's no need to continue holding for 30 minutes.
It's not what the law says, though. But the
That's
law
not how I
states,
interpret it.
I mean,
Matt?
Seeing that we're gonna be bringing the School Boards Association in on this, I'd like to hear, I did talk to them about this today, but I think it's best if they're gonna come in and talk about other policies, I think we should just save this discussion until we hear from them and maybe hear from the lawyer and see what they say. I got some other conflicting advice, but I think it's best that if we're gonna address it, let's address everything at once rather than a little tonight, a little next month, a little in January. That's my thought.
And we all seem to have a different, my thought would be, we have one committee of 3 groups that meets, so we have a 30-minute that covers all 3. You know, and like you said, we extend it if there are people that have something to say, we do extend ourselves. We have always done that. We don't shut public comment off because it went past 30 minutes. Shame.
So yeah, I don't, like Karen said, put it at the beginning, I think we've talked about this in the past where people want to hear how we comment on all the topics, and they want to talk at the end. Like, I don't think that public comment should be at the beginning at the full board, I think it should be at the end, after we've had all our discussions, they deserve to reply on that, but I understand where the law states 30 minutes, and I know what it means when it says shall, that's embedded in my head, so I think I would like to hear more from the lawyers, and just to clarify that, but I don't know about leaving it at the beginning, because they want to respond to how we deliberate on all the topics.
Dr. Markey, when you talk to the attorney, could you see, does it make a difference if it's full board versus the committees?
Sure.
Because I think,
That's what I was
I read at one point, sometimes, like committees, you don't necessarily have to do public comment, but I know,
Sounds a little tricky.
correct, I agree with you, but it doesn't make a difference in our case where we're having 3 consecutive committees in a waterfall fashion.
But I read in 189 that it applied to any meeting that was
it does apply
In
to
public.
anything.
subject to right to know.
Okay, That's, I just
There
want to
had to be
clarify, that's
public
all.
comment, if you're subject to right now.
I just want to reply to Shane. I don't disagree with you, but the wonderful thing with public comment is you could actually add it at both. You could have public comment at the beginning, and you could add another public comment if somebody really wanted to comment. Look at tonight, we didn't have any. So if we offered public comment in the beginning of the night,
We'd be sitting here.
and you know what I mean, and we offered in the beginning and nobody wanted to, but then at the end, we know somebody wanted to comment, the chair could let that person come up and speak. You have that right, like, just because public comment is in the beginning and the end, you have the right to acknowledge, it says it in it, the chair has the right to acknowledge somebody. So even if it's not public comment, we should be encouraging the public to come, and if we have our public comment at the beginning and public comments pass at 30 minutes, we can still let the person come up and talk. We should be encouraging that. We have a policy that talks about like involvement, like we could do it both places. Shocker.
So what do you suggest we do when we have a meeting, all of our business is done in 8 minutes? Sit here for another 18 minutes and just, what do we do? That's what, I understand what shall means, I understand that. But it
It's an
just,
exception to the rule.
I think this is a long discussion that's going to be had maybe for the next 6 months.
Problem is, you can't take black and white when it's convenient.
Right.
and-
I know.
and you cannot apply common sense. I mean, if we're having a 26-minute meeting, we can't have a 30-minute public comment, right? So it's okay to change it there. But whether it's open at the beginning or the end, we have a 26-minute meeting, 14 seconds, well, that's what was allotted because nobody got up and spoke. Have we had an issue yet where somebody's been denied
No,
speaking during a public comment? Now, if somebody walks in at the end of our meeting, now granted, it's 8 o'clock now. I mean, we've closed public meeting, we've moved on the agenda items. I think we can't get tied in the minutia, I'm calling it minutia, of black and white. Yes, shall means shall. And I agree.
you know what,
I know exactly what it means, and you're right. But let's use some common sense. I'm not gonna leave.
There's no such thing as common sense law.
Well,
What are you
there
talking
is.
about?
Again, it's interpretation. Nobody's been denied to raise this issue, as far as the timing of things during public comment. If they're gonna walk in
the only
now.
thing we denied was someone that wasn't here that wanted something read, and our policy states that shall appear for the board. That's what our policy says. So, because other than that, people could just inundate us with paper that would have to be read on camera, and that's not what we should be doing.
But they wouldn't inundate us. We have 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, if you had, first of all, you're not gonna get inundated with emails, but after the 30 minutes, you no longer have to read them. You read them in the order that they came, and once the 30 minutes is over, then public comment is over. But just because a person can't make it in here for either a disability or due to COVID or not feeling good, because illnesses, we're telling people not to come if they're sick, they should still be allotted the right to add that input. And we as a board should want to know what that input is. And the public should be able to know what somebody is requesting from the board. So to say that we would be here 2 hours is wrong. We only have to open it up for 30 minutes. And if we open it up in the beginning and nobody came, Mr. Kamiri, you don't close it, you just continue
suspend
on
it,
with your
right,
business.
suspend
You
it.
just suspend it, and if somebody walks in and wants to talk, within that 30 minutes, you have to give them the right. So you continue your business. So it's common sense to say, move it to the front, and if nobody speaks, you continue your agenda, and if somebody comes in and wants to speak, you let them speak within that 30 minutes.
so I know the city, what they do, if they get an email, they don't read the full email, they address their concerns, kind of summarize it, and so at least they've been acknowledged, but then that email is posted so they can read it. So that's something that maybe we need to address, so we don't read the whole email, but we add it to our agenda after, obviously, even if you get it 10 minutes before the meeting, it's added. So I think we just need to adjust our public comment to add that. If you do get an email, we address it, but we don't read the full thing verbatim.
And it would align with the city, which we've tried to do.
Yeah, I don't know why you couldn't open it, have your meeting opened with it,
Yeah.
and then suspend until later when you know there are people that have arrived that want to speak that didn't come in the beginning. And then, you know, if you've gone through your whole meeting, you've certainly had it open
Yeah.
that whole time that your meeting was taking place. And then you can close it at that point, it seems to me. Just suspend the time. Don't close it, don't end it.
Matt?
I don't disagree with that at all. I guess my issue is what has been addressed, like, are we gonna sit here for 30 minutes when we have a 5-minute meeting?
I think that's a good question for the lawyer.
And that's what I was just gonna say.
Oh,
is
sorry.
that-
Yeah.
That's
I
a
think
good
we
legal
need-
question,
I
guess.
don't see why we're arguing about it now, or discussing it now, when we need information before we can make any decisions.
And
And I think
someone
if-
said,
yeah.
the city doesn't have public comment at the city council meeting, they only have it at their workshops. At the regular meeting?
It's one and not the other. You only have it at one. One
They only
meeting-
have it at one
Yeah,
meeting
one
once,
meeting a month
where
that
they
they
have
allow.
public comment.
I just want to say, I don't think it's arguing, I think this is a good discussion, it brings up the law, it talks about common sense. I think when we disagree, but we're having I don't think anybody got heated, so I value that, and I think that's what these board meetings should be about. It should be about making sure we're following the law, and making sure we're doing our due diligence, and asking those correct questions. It's not meant, when I brought it up, it wasn't meant to cause a ruckus, it was meant to say, I recognize this, it's something that we need to address, and now we need to get confirmation. So it's not meant, again, I value everybody that spoke up, whether they agree or not, I think it's good conversation to have. And I think if somebody gets information, I think it should be shared with the group, because I think if we get confirmation from the New Hampshire School Board, I think that person should document it and it should be read and we should all know what's going on. I trust a lawyer more than, I know Barrett Christina is a lawyer, so I'm saying he would fall in that category, but this is what we should do. This is healthy discussions.
I don't disagree.
Anything else under other?
Sarah has her hand raised.
Yeah, just to that point, I mean, we just rewrote the entire BEDJ policy on May 11th, 2023, with 2 attorneys reviewing it, the city attorney and Jerry, our attorney.
And the 189 went into effect on September 6, 2022.
Yep.
So it's within, it was aligned to that RSA. 2022 or 2023.
Right, I'm not sure it was aligned.
Right, but can I just, our policy doesn't state it at the beginning, so if the lawyers reviewed it, they wouldn't know our agenda at that time, so I think just making sure they realize our agenda for public comment is added at the end. I don't think our policy was necessarily bad, I don't think that our agendas are added to it, so I think adding that caveat to question that would be worthwhile.
So do we agree to table this until we have our training?
Oh, I think that, yeah, it needs
Yeah.
more discussion because it's rewriting our
We'll need a lot of
policy.
answers and everything.
I also think the lawyers were mainly looking to make sure we were not gonna be violating anybody's constitutional rights as well. I think that's the main thing they were looking at. They weren't looking at the 30-minute thing, they weren't looking at beginning or end. Because I think even the public is misunderstanding what we're reading. We're still stating, they're still allowed to state whatever they want to state up there. It's just stating that if they come here and they defame, slander somebody, and they do not have proof, then they can be held. But they're free to state whatever they want up there.
Yep.
All right,
Sorry, McDonald.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So, second, whatever.
Aye.
Wow. And give an interest in that motion, Sarah.